we should think of symbiosis. Any relationship that we form with any other organisms that's beneficial, maybe a food plant or a medicine or a psychedelic or whatever. It's an example of symbiosis. Symbiosis is a close relationship between different species, usually that has mutual benefit for both species. And an obvious example is insects and plants. Insects pollinate plants. They depend on everything to complete their life cycles. That's a close symbiosis. It's all mediated by plant chemicals and these signal transduction processes, chemical exchanges between organisms. Well, essentially, if we adopt a plant as a medicine and consume the molecules that it contains that happen to resemble neurotransmitters from which we get meaningful information, that's symbiosis, right?
It's cooperation.
Cooperation.
But they told us it's survival.
Symbiosis is a fancy word for cooperation.
Right. But what about the survival of the fittest? That's what they taught us happens in nature, Dennis.
That's what they taught us. It turns out, yes, competition still goes on. It's not like it's absent from nature. But I think current understanding of evolutionary dynamics is symbiosis is much more important than competition and survival of the fittest, nature red and tooth and claw and all that. Species advance by cooperating, by having symbiosis and collaboration. So I'm prepared to declare that symbiosis should be declared a basic human right. And we should have the right to symbiose with any damn plant or fungus that we want to. And because it's not about humans, we should say it's an organismic right. Organisms should have the right to form symbioses, and governments should not interfere. It's a sacrosanct function of being biological, just as much as, say, women's reproductive rights should be viewed as a biological thing, and policy and all this should stay out of that. Well, they should stay out of our right to form symbioses as well. So to enter into these relationships with plants and fungi, in some ways it is a revolutionary act, but in some ways it's just the way we live. I mean, we're in symbiosis with our food plants. We're in symbiosis with any other thing that we get benefit from. And we usually benefit the organism in return. Michael Pollan writes very interestingly and eloquently about this. Before he was famous for writing about psychedelics, he wrote about food. He was the food editor for the New York Times, and he talked about the symbiosis between humans and crop plants. He loved to talk about corn. Corn was the perfect capitalist plant. It fits the global petroleum-driven monoculture agriculture that we practice. And he would say, are we cultivating corn, or is corn cultivating us? And optimizing its dominance of the world through these monkeys that it's convinced to create this infrastructure to spread corn around the world. You could ask the same question of ayahuasca. Why have these plants emerged on the global stage within the last decade or two? All of a sudden, ayahuasca is everywhere. It's in Hawaii. It's spread from Hawaii around the world. And then now we have cannabis suddenly rising up and taking a global presence. And then we have mushrooms. These things have been around forever. Why is it now and that they're coming out that everyone's excited about these things and they're getting accepted? And maybe this is a sign of this shift in consciousness. I mean, I would hope so.
And this is maybe plant intelligence. them
And
working,
maybe in part plant intelligence.
working their long game
Yeah,
on
and
us.
they play a long game. That's right.
Because they're
play
going
a
to be
long
here after we kill ourselves.
game. Yeah, well,
Guy-
they're totally, but we'll be here after we kill ourselves. And whatever we do to the planet, life will survive. I mean, evolution and the history of planet kind of shown us that, you know, at times, 98% of the species on the planet have gone extinct. And through that narrow passage, that usually leads to proliferation of life following that, biodiversity and all that. But these are processes that play out over hundreds of millions of years. They're not short, they are the really long game, you know. Sometimes I say Gaia, you know, the idea of Gaia as the, you know, the kind of the biosphere, or as the community of sentient species that maintains life on this planet within tolerable parameters. You know, Gaia is going to survive. Gaia is one tough bitch. We are not so tough, and if necessary, we will be thrown off like fleas off a dog's back, so that the rest of life can survive, and we'll be in for some rough periods. But
so this is the plant's last-ditch effort.
This is the plant's last-ditch effort. I think of these things as ambassadors in some ways, or messengers from Gaia. And they've come on the global stage. They've always been here. They've always been under the stewardship of indigenous people, which are, again, a marginalized part of the population, and that's not been good enough. So now the plants have stepped out, and they're basically saying, hello, you know, we're here, and we have a message for all of you, all of the species, and you need to listen. You need to wake up before it's too late. So it's the waking up the monkeys catalyst. And
we got 10 years.
We have 10 years, not to survive. But we have 10 years. We'll look
to turn the boat
and say, we've either turned this around or it's too late, you know, because the longer we wait, the harder it is to turn it around. You know, you can deal with a temperature rise of 1.5 degrees centigrade. You know, that's a huge warming on a global scale. If you're looking at 3 to 5 degrees centigrade, you're done. You know, that's pretty much, and some climatologists are saying that's where it's going to go. You know, and so the worse the impact is, the more radical the solutions you have to apply as you approach what amounts to this environmental singularity.